Hello and welcome to another episode of the Optimize Show. I am David Mammano, your host. So excited. I have a longtime friend and really a stellar superstar legend in the global entrepreneurial community. I have Daniel Marcos. Daniel, welcome to the Optimize Show.
Thank you, amigo. Thank you. Super excited to be here.
You are amazing. You are very well known in the circles of entrepreneurship around the globe. You have been in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for 23 plus years. You have been in YPO, Young Presidents Organization. You've been in, and then, so Vern Harnish, who is another legend. I just might say he is the legend of entrepreneurship around the globe. Started EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and many other things. Gazelles, which is now what is Gazelles called now? Scale up, scaling up. Yeah, he's done so many things I lose track. So Vern Harnish and you co-founded, and you are the CEO of the Growth Institute, which is an amazing platform to help entrepreneurs around the globe learn, connect, grow, and really scale up. So Daniel, tell us, let's just start out about your journey in entrepreneurship, about how you got to what you're doing today, and then definitely want to dive into more about learning about the Growth Institute.
So I started as an entrepreneur many years ago, selling candy when I was a kid and doing an aquarium in my house, like the typical. But I was a very undisciplined entrepreneur until I went to college, worked for a brokerage house during college, then worked in Hong Kong. I was the financial attaché of the Mexican consulate in Hong Kong. So I worked 5 years for big corporations and government and learned a lot of the discipline and structure of business. So after that, I resigned to my job in Hong Kong, came back to Mexico, where I'm originally from, and I built the first fintech in Mexico, first financial technology company. So we were the first one, 1998, to put stock quotes online and do stock trading in the Mexican market. Long time ago. Indeed, we got the first online banking license in the country in 2000. So that was a huge thing back then. And then we merged with an Argentinian company. It was a competitor of us in Argentina, and a Brazilian company, to build the biggest platform in Latin America, and grew it to 1,200 employees, and then sold it to Banco Santander. So we really created the second biggest technology internet company back in the 2000s. Huge success. And I started when I was like 25 and left when I was 29. So very early, we saw a lot of very fast growth, and that gave us a platform that has carried us for many, many years. Took some year off, did an MBA, and then came to the US. I wanted to prove myself in the biggest market in the world and build a mortgage bank to finance undocumented Hispanics in the US. So I was the subprime of the subprime. 2007 came in and I got destroyed. It was crazy how fast we went down that week. When the subprime went down, because we were lending mostly to undocumented Hispanics, that funding dried up in 48 hours. And then we had to shut down operations. I had around 120 employees back then. And then we shut it down, and I became a coach. Interestingly, Vern called me and said, "Hey, what's next?" And I complained on a call, and I was not in a good spot. It was tough after closing the company. And Vern said, "Okay, what's next? Like, have you finished complaining? What are you going to do next?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm going to get a job. I was very bad financially." And he said, "Why don't you coach other entrepreneurs?" And I was like, "You're crazy. I cannot even trust myself as an entrepreneur. How do you want me to coach someone else?" And he said, "That's precisely why. You have to make sure this doesn't happen again." And I started coaching entrepreneurs, went back to Mexico, got a job, and I started coaching entrepreneurs on the weekends. And in 6 months, I was making more money on the weekends than on the week. So I resigned to my job and became a full-time coach. And I've been coaching entrepreneurs for 15 years now. A lot of my typical client does 20, 50, 100 million revenue. But I've coached a couple of $1 billion companies, mostly big family businesses, third generation, in their process of transitioning to the third generation and really restructuring and professionalizing operations. And then, as you said, 10 years ago, Vern and I were talking about how can we take what we do in a different way to serve more companies all over the world. And that's why we created Growth Institute. My biggest pain being an EO member and a YPO member is I learn a lot. I become an avid reader and learner, and I go to events all the time. But then everything I learn, I want to implement in my business. And I have to be accountable to implement everything because I'm the one that has the knowledge. And that doesn't work. CEOs were terrible implementers of new things in the company. You need your team on board and your team aligned. Indeed, interestingly, I met Vern for the first time in MIT in a program called Birthing of Giants in 2000. You're a graduate too, yeah. So went to the program, came back super excited to my company, and I said, guys, we're going to implement all of this. And my team didn't get it. They were just like thinking I was crazy and trying to do all these things. Until 3 months after that, they were pushing me back and pushing me back. And I said, now we're all going to go to San Antonio. Vern was teaching this program in San Antonio for 3 days. I flew my team to San Antonio. And the lunchtime of the first day, they look at me and say, like, this is amazing. Why did you told us? And I was like, I've been begging you to do this for 3 months. But because they don't have the same context and learn directly from the source, it was difficult for them to comprehend. So I said, how can I do that using technology in a much better way? So what we do is we partner with thought leaders. Like a thought leader writes a book, sells their rights, and partners with a publishing company for their book. We do the same for their online course. And we have partnered with over 100 thought leaders building their course online. And we've been helping over 11,000 companies around the world implement all of this. So we've had paid clients that we have implement improvements in their business in over 70 countries around the world. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. Great journey. Do you find that, because of your quote unquote failure with that banking business, that, I think that Vern was alluding to, that you were and are a better coach because you've experienced the highs and lows? Does that optimize your coaching?
A lot. So the other day I was talking with an entrepreneur. He's a client of mine 5 years ago. And he said, you're the most negative entrepreneur I know. And I was like, yes, but the probability of you going under with me coaching was going to be very, very low. I could see the signs. I've seen the pain that I felt. So I usually help entrepreneurs put controls and get the right KPIs to make sure that does happen to them. And they've been very grateful because of that. Indeed, I have a client that I've been coaching for 6 years. And he has an amazing business, very, very profitable business, very, very happy with his business. And he told me, I want to hire you so I don't destroy my business. So whenever I come with ideas of all the new things I want to do, your job is to say no. So I just don't say no. I challenge them. I make him think through. And out of the 10 or 15 things or ideas he brings to the table, he really just implements 1 or 2. And those are the right things to implement. As entrepreneurs, we get super excited for something and we try to implement without really discussing it or analyzing it. And that creates a lot of drama. So my job is to make sure they don't do that.
Yep. So you hit it between the eyes with what they need to hear in a candid, maybe tactful way, maybe not, but you're telling them what they need to hear.
I tell them, hey, I'm not here to make friends, and I would love to be your friend, but I'm here not to make friends. I'm here to grow your company. So if I think you're doing a mistake, I'm going to tell you. If I tell you you're being a bad boss or a bad leader, I'm going to tell you. And I have clients that they've been mad with me for a couple of days, sometimes a couple of weeks. But at the end, they realized that what I said was the right thing, or it was the right perspective. So I'm good with that. So I'll give you an example. The other day, I was working with a really big family business in Latin America. And we were talking about this thing in their business and having this idea session. And one of the employees made an idea to really grow the company. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And the owner said, no, we're not going to do it. Don't even put it on the board. And I was like, come on, we're having this exercise. We're discussing ideas. Sounds like a decent idea. Let's put it on the board. And the CEO said, no, we're not going to do it. Get it off the board. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it on the board. So I put it on the board. And by the time we finished the exercise, we ranked them by impact and all that. Was the number one, agreed by the team, that was number one thing to do to scale the company. And the owner was really mad with me. So usually when I travel to their country for 2 or 3 days, after the session, I go and have dinner with the CEO and their family or something just to relate, or they take me to do some sightseeing in their country. And we left the room. He took me straight to the hotel at 6 p.m. and just dropped me in the hotel. And I was like, oh, he's not happy, but that was what the session was for, right? And the next day he came to pick me up at 7 a.m., usually as he does. And he said, yesterday I was really, really mad with you because you showed me what I really need to do to grow my business. I'm just not willing to do it. That will destroy my personal life. But you're here to grow the company, and you're right. That's exactly what I need to do. I'm just not willing to do it. So let's go to thing number 2. And I agree we're going to grow less, but I'm just not ready to do it. And I was fine. And we went to number 2.
Balancing personal and business, right? Yeah.
But at least we rearranged the growth projections and the KPIs the team was expecting to achieve with a reality of strategy number 2. Yeah, I told them, if you want to get the numbers that you're expecting, then you have to do strategy number 1. I said, I'm just not willing to do it. And I was like, fine. As long as you accept and understand that it's for your decision that you're not doing it, not because the business cannot do it. And he was happy with it.
Yeah. So there was some clarity around the vision, very specific clarity about what the team was going to do and what they weren't going to do. So that's awesome.
But before, there was some KPIs that were unrealistic. And of course, the team was not getting
KPI, this is, for everybody, key performance indicator. Just want to throw that out there.
That's correct. Some numbers, some goals he was expecting the team to achieve, but he was not giving them the tools to do them right. And I was like, alignment is lowers drama. And once we were aligned and they knew exactly what they had to do, people were happy.
Yeah,
and they moved forward, aligned as a team.
Daniel, I love that example. Tell me some more examples of how, when either in your coaching or with the Growth Institute, with all the business owners you've met that have done lessons, videos, et cetera. Tell me about some of the other strategies that you've seen and or implemented in your coaching on helping people optimize their business when it comes to growing it.
So very early in my career, and David, you and I went to Birthing of Giants. And what Vern did there was first introduce us to the right thought leaders. He curated all the books. If you go to Amazon, there's probably 2 million business book titles today. So really understanding what's the right methodology for the stage that you're at in business is very important. So Vern curated that for us. But then it showed me or gave us a tool that whenever you have a problem or an opportunity in business, instead of trying to figure out what to do, you have to choose who's the best in that or who's the expert, and then follow the methodology. Like, that's why you have so many business books. Someone figures out how to fix a problem or take care of an opportunity, becomes an expert in the subject, and then writes a book about it. Our job as the leader of a company is understanding who's the expert in the issue that we're having or the opportunity we're trying to accomplish, and then get direct learning from them, read their book, whatever, and then follow a disciplined practice of what they recommend, right? It's like saying, hey, I want to run a marathon, and just waking up and go and run and train every day, or hiring a coach that gives you a plan, sleeping plan, exercise plan, eating plan, just follow it. The probability of you doing better in the marathon after following a coach and the discipline structure is much higher. So that's what we do at the Growth Institute, and that's what I feel and I believe makes a big sense. So first, understand what's the best methodology and the expert that you could follow, and then have a deliberate practice on how you implement what you did. And the third thing is all the team together. We believe that if you want to scale your company, you have to first scale your team. We have to scale your team as a team, not just as an individual. So at the Growth Institute, we rarely sell a course for one individual. It's like 3 or 4 people together. They learn together, they discuss how to implement, and they agree on a plan. And now the team goes to implement with the agreement and alignment of the CEO, but without the CEO time and involvement. And that makes huge inroads to be able to implement much faster. So our philosophy is, if you want to scale your company by 10x, you first have to grow your team by 10x, not in quantity, in capabilities. And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, you're making me think of John Maxwell, who is, the leadership guru, and I love his saying that great leaders create more leaders.
100%.
And
100%.
and and
Love
so
that.
and Vern has another great saying that often the leader's greatest strength becomes the company's biggest bottleneck. And so to your point, a lot of times the founder of the company grows the company to a certain level, and then not always, but often starts to get stuck. That doesn't know what to do to bring it to the next level. So they have a choice. They have a few choices, right? Do nothing and probably fail. Not a good choice. The other choice is move themselves aside as the CEO and bring in another CEO and maybe stay in the company or on the board. Or to your point, grow the team. Surround yourself with a great team that can have expertise in the areas that the leader is lacking in, so that you all are all the ships are rising with the company. So I love what you're saying about growing the team to grow the business, to optimize the growth of the business.
Up to 15, 20 employees, you could be kind of growing your company because of your hustle and you being someone they like and all that. After 15, 20, you have to change your leadership. Instead of your team working for you, you working for your team. So whenever you're around 15, 20, you're going to have to hire, let's say, a head of sales. That the head of sales know more about sales than you. And your job is to grow them and help them become better. And the more they grow, the better they become, the more they're going to grow your company. Until 15, 20, you could be the most intelligent person in the room. After 15, 20, you have to hire way more intelligent people than you in every department. And instead of telling them what to do, you have to coach them for them to become better and work better as a team. And they will grow your company. You kind of step aside. I usually show a typical org chart. The hierarchical org chart. They have a CEO and then all the leaders. I usually turn around and I say, you as leader, you're below. Your job is to help your leaders. So your leaders grow your team, because your team is going to grow your company and is going to serve your clients. And once you put it in that perspective, they really realize they're here to really build an amazing team and be able to support them in their growth. The better leaders they become, the more they're going to grow their company.
What questions do you advise great leaders to ask their team? Like, we don't want to tell them what to do all the time. We want to, great leaders ideally are coaching their team. And what are some great questions a great leader can ask their team?
So I don't know if you remember the drama triangle, that they come with a problem and they come as victims and said, hey, save me, right? And they ask you to be the savior. So an employee comes to you and said, hey, I have this problem. What do you want me to do? If you respond to them and said, this is what you have to do, you are telling them, I agree you're a victim. I agree you don't have the knowledge and tools. And that's why I have to save you. So the worst thing you could do is telling a high caliber thinking employee exactly what to do. So when, let's say, my head of sales come to me and say, hey, we have a problem, what do you want me to do? I come back and said, what would you do? Because you're my head of sales. I expect you to know more sales than me. So you're the head of sales. What would you do? And then my job is to ask him questions to make sure they're doing the right thing. Same as I coach CEOs. My job is to question what you're thinking. And by the way, sometimes when they tell me something, or the first response, that it sounds right, I said, hey, this sounds right. Let me challenge it. And let me see how you defend it. Because it's not just that the idea, if you defend it well, the idea it means that you have fundamentals behind the idea. If you just throw an idea and it sounds well, but when I start challenging it, you cannot defend it, that's when you start seeing the holes. So my job is to challenge their decision, their ideas, to try to find the holes that they don't have or the assumptions that they take incorrectly. So the way you coach your employees is really asking them questions, helping them see what they're doing in different ways or different perspectives, and then they will understand if what they're doing is right or not. And then if after all the questions and all the challenges, it sounds right that they have defended it well, people like, that sounds amazing, go and do it. But if you get the questions and you find their holes or you find that they haven't thought it through, your objective is to find how to strengthen their decision. And now they're going to say like, wow, now I understand that I was making the assumption. Based on that, now I'm going to do this. And I was like, that sounds great. Go and do it. And then help them feel comfortable that what they're doing is the right thing. Because you want them to do it with confidence. If they're going to execute something without confidence, the probability of them executing it wrong is going to be much higher. So once I challenge their questions and we have a winning plan or move, now my job is to just help them feel great with that decision so they could implement it with confidence.
No, I love it. I remember when I was running my publishing company, I would have a weekly meeting with all my managers, one by one and then all together. But I would always have an agenda. I would create the agenda. I would drive it. I would, be telling them what to do. And then one day a leadership coach asked me, well, why don't you instead get rid of that agenda and just ask them one simple question. What can I do to support you? And then shut up, David. And so I started doing that. What can I do to support you? Zip it. And everybody was stunned at first, but then they loved it. It opened up to a great conversation. They're like, well, here's what I need from you, David. And then I started taking notes, and it totally reversed the meeting in a really great way. And to your point, I became, quote unquote, on the bottom. I was supporting them instead of me top down, dictating what needs to be done. I was using their brains instead of mine.
As an example, in following exactly what you're saying, we have a weekly meeting of the leadership team on Mondays at 1 p.m. Central Time. And we usually use Asana for day-to-day work. And in Asana, we have a channel for the leadership team, and we have a part that we call subjects to discuss in the leadership meeting. And during the day, we're having a problem and we don't have enough time to solve it or whatever, and they put it as they park it in a parking lot for issues on the leadership team. So when we open the leadership team meeting, the first thing we do is we open Asana and we have all the issues we need to discuss. That's our parking lot of issues. And usually they put 95% of the issues. I usually come to the meeting and said, what issues do we have to address? And they start bringing issues and we start discussing them as a team and try to tackle 5 or 6 issues in 90 minutes. And now they go, and now they're on stuff.
I love it. Daniel, this has been super fantastic. A quick burst of great leadership advice and nuggets. Thank you so much for sharing some heartbeats with us today. I know you're a very busy guy, doing a lot of things around the globe. Please tell Vern that I said hello, and everybody here at the Optimize Show says, I'm going to contact him to be on the show. But Daniel Marcos, if people are like, wow, I'm really digging what Daniel is saying, how are they going to get in touch with you? How are they going to find you?
So in Growth Institute, they could reach out to me. But YouTube, I have a personal YouTube channel, a Growth Institute YouTube channel. We put a lot of content there. And then if they want to reach out to me, probably Instagram is the easiest. DanielMarcos.scale in Instagram, and they could reach out to me, and I respond to all of them personally myself.
Very good. And I'll just throw this out there for everybody who wants a personal introduction to Daniel. He's a longtime friend. I'd be happy to do that too. Just throw me an email, and we will go from there. Daniel Marcos, thanks again for being on the show. Truly appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, amigo.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching another great episode of The Optimize Show. I hope that we helped you tremendously with some great nuggets to take away and implement into your business today. Have a great day, and make sure to stay awesome.